You're listening to old Western stories, where dust settles slow, guns speak loud, and every tale rides straight into your imagination. Hit that subscribe and saddle up, the ride's just startin'. Rain hadn't come to Mercy Ridge in 48 days, and the ground cracked like old hands holding grief too long. The wind didn't whisper so much as it scraped, dragging dust across clapboard porches and tin signs that clattered like bones in the hush of late afternoon. You could hear the hammering of loneliness in the way the schoolhouse bell echoed after class, one long toll, unanswered. Miss Eveline Hart stacked the last primer book into the satchel by her feet, her spine a-chin from another day bending, over children not her own. 38, unmarried and wearing that invisible mark folks in town whispered about when her boots passed the mercantile, not cruelly, just that quiet kind of pity reserved for spinsters and lost cattle. She laced the schoolhouse shut and stood a moment on the front steps, her breath hitching in the dry air. The children's laughter had long faded down the trail toward town. All that was left was the soft creak of the flag chain above, and the far-off drone of cicadas startin' up like an argument with God. Then hoofbeats, not hurried, not slow, just certain, from the south road that coiled up from the flatlands. A man rode up on a dapple-gray roan, lean in the saddle, dust-worn hat low over his brow, dressed plain, travel-bitten, no badge, no trail gear, just a satchel tied behind and a way of sittin' that said he hadn't been run off by much in life. He dismounted without speaking, tethered the reins to the porch post like he'd done it 100 times before, then looked up at her with eyes the color of wet ash. "School's out?" he asked, voice low and steady. She nodded, uncertain. "For the day." He stepped forward, not onto the porch but close enough she could smell leather and the faint iron note of old blood, maybe his, maybe someone else's. He didn't offer a name, just looked at her like he already knew hers. "I'm needin' a wife," he said. The wind hitched. The chain on the flag clanked once. Eveline blinked. "I beg your pardon. I said I need a wife. Quick marriage. Not a love thing if that's what you're thinkin'. Legal arrangement. Comes with land rights, house, livestock, full deed in 6 months' time. After that, we part ways if either's so inclined." She stared, thinking, maybe the heat cooked his mind. "You'd best try the saloon or the church. Women round here don't take kindly to strange offers from the trail." "I asked around," he said. "Folks say you're educated. You don't drink, don't steal, don't leave things half done. Ain't got no kin, and town's treated you like you're past your prime. That about right." Eveline's mouth went dry. She hadn't heard pity said so plain. He continued, "I need someone the judge won't question. Marriage buys me stability. In return you get land, more than this schoolhouse'll ever give." She crossed her arms, jaw tight. "You still haven't said your name." "Jonas Vale." That name landed hard. Folks whispered it up north near Laramie. A shootist turned rancher turned vanishin' act. Some said he killed a sheriff. Others said he once spared a man who didn't deserve it, which in some ways was worse. "You got papers?" she asked. "In my bag. Pre-signed contract. Witnessed in Elkhorn County. You can take it to the marshal, get it read." She hesitated. Pride screamed to send him packing, but something in his voice, a quiet desperation beneath the calm, felt familiar. Like loneliness wearing a different hat. "What's the catch?" she asked. His jaw ticked. "You'll be hated by some, feared by others. I got enemies, but none'll touch you if they think you're mine. They won't risk it. That's supposed to be comfortin'." He shrugged. "Just truth." She looked out over the plain. The sky was turning to copper, and the wind carried the scent of sage and unsettled things. It had been years since any man looked at her without measurement, even longer since one asked her to choose instead of wait to be chosen. "Come back tomorrow," she said. "If you're still of the same mind, I'll give you answer then." He touched the brim of his hat once. "Fair." By the time his roan's hooves disappeared down the trail, Eveline's hands were trembling. She locked the satchel inside and walked home through a town that already stopped noticing her. But that night she didn't sleep much. Just sat by the oil lamp with the contract, reading it line by line while coyotes howled out beyond the wheat fields. Come morning, the church bell rang for Sunday, and she stood outside the white clapboard building in her best navy dress, eyes watching the horizon. Some townsfolk turned to stare. The widow Greer whispered to Pastor Wilton, but Eveline didn't flinch. Jonas returned before the third chime, hat in hand, clean shirt, same storm-eyed gaze. Still of the same mind? She asked. He nodded once. You. She looked past him toward the hills where his land sat, unseen but waiting. Let's get this done. 2 signatures and 1 stony-eyed pastor later, Eveline Hart became Eveline Vale. No kiss, no rice. Just a contract sealed in ink and wind. They rode out that evening, past the edge of town where Mercy Ridge gave way to wild grass and cattle fence, the road turning rough as memory. Jonas's land was 37 acres of stubborn earth and half a house. The roof sagged on one side, the barn leaned like it drank too much, and the well pump wheezed like a dying mule. But the soil was good. Water near the clay line. A creek down slope that ran clean most years. She set her bags inside what passed for a kitchen and turned to find him leaning in the doorway, arms crossed. I sleep in the barn, he said. You'll have the house. I won't touch you. That was part of the deal. I remember. They didn't speak much that first week. Just worked mending fence, clearing weeds, patching the roof when a windstorm cracked it further. He cooked simple meals. She taught him how to boil coffee without burning it. Small trades, careful distance. But things don't stay quiet forever, not when land's worth fighting for. Come the 10th day, Eveline heard horses before she saw 'em. 3 riders kicking up trail dust near the south fence. She stepped out with a rifle balanced casual in her arms. Jonas was already there, hands loose by his sides, eyes fixed on the lead man. A heavy-set rancher with silver spurs and a sneer. Luther Bray. Owned the Triple C brand and half the county's politicians. You Vale, Bray spat. Thought you was dead. Jonas didn't answer. Bray jerked a thumb at the fence line. This here's my land, always has been. Don't care what papers you got. It's Vale land now, Eveline said, her voice steady. Bray's eyes cut to her like she was a roach in his stew. You the schoolmarm. Guess you found use after all. Jonas took a step forward, calm but final. You're trespassing, Bray. Next time you cross that line, come proper, or don't come back. Bray grinned, all teeth and hate. This ain't done. They rode off, but not fast. The kind of slow that says trouble'll come when it pleases. That night Eveline found Jonas sitting on the porch, cleaning a Colt revolver by lamplight. You ever shoot a man? She asked. He didn't look up. Not for sport. She sat beside him. The wind was changing. The air smelled like distant fire. Then we best be ready. He nodded just once, and kept cleaning. The next week brought no rain, but trouble came just the same. First it was the gate cut clean through, hinges hanging like snapped bone. Then the well cover kicked in and fouled with horse dung. Small things, petty things, but Eveline knew the taste of escalation when it got in her mouth. She said nothing at supper, just chewed tough beef and watched Jonas chew slower, his eyes distant like he could see 3 steps past whatever came next. He didn't get rattled, not even when he found the steer gutted out past the north fence, its hide marked with the Triple C's iron like a middle finger. Eveline watched him kneel beside it, press his hand to the blood-wet grass, then rise and walk back to the barn without saying a word. That night she heard him loading shells behind the stall door. The sound echoed in her bones. Come Sunday, she rode into town alone. Jonas stayed behind with repairs and silence. The church pews felt smaller than usual, and the air carried that sharp scent of tallow and judgment. Widow Greer shifted when Eveline sat beside her like the heat of association might burn. After the sermon, Pastor Wilton caught her by the arm, his voice low but firm. "Sister Eveline, there's talk. That man you married, he's dangerous stock. The Lord may forgive any soul, but the land don't always follow." Eveline looked him square. "The land's been more honest than half the people I've known." She mounted back up without lingering. As she rode past the saloon, two ranch hands spat into the dust and laughed loud enough for her to hear. "That schoolmarm's got more grit than sense," one of 'em said. She didn't flinch, but the words curled in her like wire. That night, Jonas sat at the porch with a lantern and a map rolled out over a whiskey crate. She stepped beside him, arms crossed, skirt rustling in the dry air. "You should have warned me Bray had the town bought." Jonas didn't look up. "Didn't figure you'd scare easy." "I ain't scared," she said, though the quiver in her throat said otherwise. "I just like knowing the odds." He finally looked at her, and for the first time since they'd met, his voice dipped low enough to scratch beneath the words. "I buried a man once for underestimating him. That's a mistake I won't repeat." Eveline reached down, slid her fingers across the edge of the map. "You think they'll try for the land deed?" "Not directly. Bray's too slick for that. He'll rattle fences, starve the cattle, maybe burn us out if we let him." "Then we don't let him." They rode together the next morning, east side, then north, surveying fence lines and set traps more suited for men than coyotes. Eveline wore her revolver now, low at the hip, and walked with the gait of someone who'd traded chalkboard dust for powder smoke. Jonas watched her from the corner of his eye, not saying much, but the set of his shoulders told her he didn't expect a schoolteacher to adapt quite so quick. On the 5th day, they came back from the far fence to find the barn door hanging open and a young man leaning casual against the frame. Tall, clean-shaven, with a rifle across his back and a smile built for betrayal. Jonas stiffened. Eveline saw his hand twitch, not quite to his gun, but close. "Didn't think I'd find you playing house," the man said. "Place smells like beans and boredom." "Rafe," Jonas muttered. "Didn't know you were still breathin'." The man, Rafe, tipped his hat toward Eveline, grin widening. "Jonas never mentioned a wife. That's new and bold." Eveline narrowed her eyes. "Your kin used to be," Jonas answered. "Blood don't always mean what it should." Rafe stepped closer. His boots crunched gravel, slow and measured. "Bray's paying good for names, Vale. Even better for deeds. You sittin' on a pile of headaches, and all for what? Some high-minded notion of legacy. This land's clean," Jonas said. "Bought right, worked hard." "And wasted," Rafe snapped. "You think Bray cares about papers. He owns the marshal. He owns the land office. Only thing you're doing is stalling the inevitable." Eveline stepped forward then, voice sharp as barbed wire. "If you're here to threaten, do it clear. If not, ride on." Rafe turned to her, smile vanishing. "You're braver than you look. So's a rattler," she said. "But neither of us bites first." A long silence stretched between them, heat swelling under the tin roof. Then Rafe chuckled, low and humorless. "You always find strays like this, Jonas. Or is she your redemption story?" Jonas's jaw clenched. "You got 10 seconds before I forget you used to be my brother." Rafe looked between them one last time, then turned and swung onto his horse. "This place'll burn," he called. "Might not be me, might not be Bray, but it'll burn." They watched him ride off into the belly of the hills, that same dust tailing behind him like a threat unpaid. That night neither spoke much. Eveline sat at the table, oil lamp throwing long shadows, hands wrapped around a chipped mug of coffee gone cold. "Your brother?" she asked at last. Jonas nodded slow. "Used to ride together. Before I saw what he'd become." "What'd he do?" He didn't answer right off, just stared at the flame dancing in the lamp glass. "We were hired guns for a while, fought for pay, guarded rail lines, took sides in cattle wars. One job got out of hand. Rafe killed a boy didn't need killing. I walked away. He didn't. And now he's working for Bray. Looks that way." Eveline leaned back, exhaling slow. The floor creaked beneath her chair, wood warped from years of weather and weight. "If he comes back, he won't come back alone," Jonas said. "Not next time." The quiet that followed wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that coils, waits. Eveline heard it in the scratch of a rat beneath the floorboards, in the groan of the barn roof settling, in the wind scratching against the shutters like nails on wood. By midweek, the well had gone dry. Jonas said nothing, but Eveline saw the way his hand gripped the fence rail, white-knuckled and hard. They rode out to the creek with buckets and quiet eyes, and when they got back, the henhouse had been opened. Feathers everywhere. One bird left, throat slit clean. That evening, as she scrubbed blood from the kitchen floor with an old rag and salt water, Eveline felt something shift. Not in the world, but in herself. Like a line had been crossed that she hadn't drawn but now had to answer for. Jonas came in from the barn, boots heavy. "I'm thinking we send word to the marshal," he said. "Force a formal claim check. Make Bray come legal." "Won't stick," she replied. "You said yourself marshal's bought." He sighed, ran a hand through his hair. "Then we hold." She looked at him, and for the first time she didn't see the quiet gunslinger or the man with a plan. She saw a soul wearing thin. "If they come at night, we won't have enough firepower," she said. "You know that." "I know." The lantern flickered. The walls felt closer. Then she asked the question she hadn't let herself consider till now. "You picked me 'cause I had no one to lose, didn't you?" Jonas met her eyes, and there was a sadness there so deep it didn't have a name. "I picked you 'cause you'd fight when most folks would fold." The silence after that stretched long, until far off they heard the sound of horses. Not one, not two, a group, moving fast. Eveline stood. Jonas grabbed his rifle. The sound grew clearer, hoofbeats and wagon wheels, metal clinking in harness. She stepped to the door, cracked it just enough to see torchlight bobbing down the southern trail. At least 6 riders, maybe more. She turned back to Jonas, heart pounding. "You said he wouldn't come back alone." Jonas chambered around. "He didn't." The rider didn't follow. Eveline kept east, eyes on the trail, heart thumping. A steady rhythm that matched her mare's hooves beat in dry earth. The wind came stiff through the canyons, smelling of lichen and old stone, and every so often she'd pass a bleached skull half buried along the ridge trail. Goat, maybe. Coyote, hard to tell, just bones now. By nightfall she made camp under a cluster of mesquite, fire kept low, rifle across her knees. The stars hung quiet above, but her mind didn't settle none. She thought of Jonas, likely setting, outfeed by lamplight, pistol within arm's reach. She thought of Bray, sitting, fat in some parlor with maps and deeds he meant to steal with fire or ink. And she thought of Rafe, that half-smile he wore like a scab, and whether his turning away meant he'd shifted sides, or just paused long enough to watch the house burn slower. Come morning, Eveline reached the edge of Abel's Bluff, where the land dipped sudden into cedar scrub and blackrock trails. She found the ranger's cabin just before noon, weathered, smoke from the flue, and a mule tied out front, nowing, at a stump like it owed him money. She knocked twice, no answer. Then a third time louder. Inside, a floorboard creaked. The door cracked open, revealing a shotgun muzzle and a single milky eye behind it. "If you're selling religion or patent dust, turn around," came the voice. "I'm neither," she said. "I'm Eveline Hart, George Hart's daughter." A pause, the shotgun lowered. "Well, I'll be, Eveline. You're taller than I remember. You're older than I hoped," she said, smiling, just enough to not spook him. The door swung wide, and there stood Thaddeus Quinn, 6 foot of wiry sinew wrapped in a duster that looked like it had fought the War of '61 and lost. He limped as he stepped back. "Come on in then, but talk quick. I ain't gettin' no younger." The inside smelled of pipe smoke, dried herbs, and old leather. A fox pelt hung on the far wall. Eveline took the only chair that didn't wobble and laid out the tale in straight lines. No tears, no drama. Just the contract, the land, the threats, and the man she married for convenience and might just fight beside for principle. Thaddeus didn't speak through most of it, just chewed the end of a matchstick and stared at the stove like it owed him an answer. When she finished, he leaned back and exhaled slow. "You married a Vale, huh? Can't tell if that makes you brave or just tired of waitin'. Maybe both." And Bray's pressin' hard, started with fences, moved to fire, next time'll be people. He stood, joints poppin', crossed to a chest and opened it. Inside lay a Henry repeater, oiled dark and mean-lookin'. "Your father saved my life in Galveston. I once told him if his kin ever needed a reckoning, I'd show up. This ain't about vengeance," she said. "It's about keepin' what's ours." He nodded. "One and the same out here." They rode at dawn. 2 days hard back to Mercy Ridge, dodgin' Bray's cattle lanes and scoutin' every ridge for movement. Thaddeus rode stiff, but he didn't complain, and Eveline rode tighter now, senses sharpened by every mile. On the second night they camped near the bluffs, and Eveline asked, "You ever kill a man for land?" Thaddeus stirred the fire, ash flickerin' against the dark. "Land's just dirt, but I've killed to keep a promise made on it." They reached the Vale homestead as sun broke across the plain, the house still standin', smoke from the chimney, but fence posts near the west line were splintered and black. Jonas met them by the barn, rifle slung, eyes cautious, till he saw Eveline upright and unshot. He took her reins, then stared at Thaddeus like readin' a wanted poster. "This him?" Thaddeus asked. Eveline nodded. "Jonas Vale." The old ranger offered a hand. "You got good taste in women. Hope your aim's as sound." Jonas gave half a smile. "Depends who I'm shootin' at." Inside, Eveline stripped off trail dust and poured herself strong coffee while the men spoke in low tones on the porch. She caught fragments. Bray's playin' long game, Marshall's in his pocket, won't stop till blood or ink settles it. She stepped out as Thaddeus unrolled a hand-drawn map across the porch rail. "He's pushin' west from the canyon," the old man said, tapping the paper. "Your land's the key to a full water route if he can tie it to the Triple C grazing line. So he's not just greedy," Jonas said. "He's strategic." Eveline pointed to a narrow gulch near the southern trail. "Could bottleneck 'em there, if we knew when they were common." "We will," Jonas said. "Rafe'll tell us." Thaddeus snorted. "You trust your brother now?" "No," Jonas replied, "but I know how he moves. He'll ride ahead to check the ground. Always did." That evening, as light waned and wind picked up, Jonas saddled his horse. "I'll ride to the ridge. If they're common, it'll be soon. I can mark the trail, set the signs." Eveline stepped close, voice low. "You sure you'll be back?" He held her gaze, and for a heartbeat the world shrank to just them. "I've left too much behind in life," he said. "I ain't leaving this." Then he rode out, a dark figure swallowed by wind and dusk. Eveline and Thaddeus watched till he vanished. The night dragged long. No sleep came. Just the scrape of wind on windows and the dry creak of old floorboards settlin'. Eveline sat at the table cleanin', her revolver for the third time when a knock hit the door. 2 raps, then 1, then silence. She opened it fast, gun raised, only to find Jonas bloodied and half-folded in the doorway. "Ambush," he rasped, fallen into her arms. "They're common, not tomorrow now." Thaddeus helped him to the table, tore the shirt open. Shoulder wound deep but clean. Bullet passed through. Eveline ripped linens and poured whiskey while Jonas gritted through the sting. "They moved fast," he said. 6 riders, Bray in the middle. "Rafe?" Eveline asked. "Didn't see him." Eveline looked to Thaddeus. "Can we hold?" The old ranger checked the window, the barn, the fences. "Not if they hit full force." "Then we don't wait," she said. "We ride out to the gulch, set charges. Split their line." Jonas shook his head, face pale. "You'll be outnumbered." "Not outsmarted," Thaddeus said. "We make it narrow, they come single file." Eveline strapped her holster tight, hand steady now. "We finish this before it starts." Jonas caught her wrist. "Come back," he said, voice rough. "Please." She leaned down, pressed her forehead to his. "I will, with or without a war." Then she turned and vanished into the dark with Thaddeus at her side, the night carrying the scent of powder and pine sap, the wind warmin' like fire's breath. Behind 'em, the ranch lights dimmed. Ahead in the gulch, death waited. The gulch narrowed like a throat meant for strangling, steep walls of shale risen up on either side, the trail squeezing tight enough to slow horses to a single line. Eveline crouched behind a slab of limestone near the bend, hands dusted in black powder, heart thumping steady beneath her bodice. Beside her, Thaddeus Quinn, the grizzled old ranger who owed her father a favor and showed up with guns instead of words, set the last of the dynamite charges along a ridge of dry rock. He moved like an old tree bending with memory, but his hands never trembled. 15 seconds on this fuse, he muttered. Not a second more. Eveline nodded, teeth set. You take the far rise. Cover fire. And you? I light it. She watched the trail mouth below. The sun hadn't crested yet, but the smell of horse sweat and brass already lingered on the air. She could feel Bray's men common before she saw him, heard it in the crunch of gravel and the sharp clink of spurs that didn't try to hide themselves. From the far ridge a crow cawed once. Thaddeus slipped off, rifle strapped, boots silent. Eveline reached into her coat for the match tin, fingers brushing her mother's locket. She held it a second longer than she meant to. Then came the first rider. Leather creaked, iron horseshoes struck stone. One by one they filed into the choke point, 6 men, 2 abreast, then fallen into single line. Bray rode second, clean coat, silver trim on his saddle. His face looked bored, like this was just a formality before a branding. Rafe was there too, at the rear, hat low, rifle slung. He hadn't seen her yet. She lit the fuse. It hissed like a snake whacking up mean. She counted. 1, 2, 3. The blast tore the gulch like God had punched through the mountain. Stone screamed. Dust roared. Horses screamed. Eveline hit the ground, heat licking past her boots as fire bloomed up the wall. Men shouted. A rider flew backward, arms wide, struck a boulder with a crunch Eveline felt in her ribs. The front half of Bray's crew scattered back the way they came, but Bray himself had leapt clear, boots hitched on a low ledge, gun drawn. Eveline rose, shotgun tight in both hands, smoke curling from her hair. Bray turned toward her, eyes wide, then narrow. You, she fired, missed. Rock burst inches from his arm. He ducked, fired once, bullet kissed her shoulder, tore cloth but missed skin. From the far ridge Thaddeus opened up. His Henry cracked twice. One of Bray's men dropped. Another fell from his horse screaming. Bray rolled down the ledge, hit the trail, sprinted for cover near a boulder the size of a freight hog. Eveline followed, boots slamming stone, reloading on the run. Rafe saw her then. Stared. Didn't raise his rifle. Just watched her charge straight at his boss. Bray leaned from cover, pistol up. She was faster. Shot him dead center in the gut. He jerked like a puppet with its strings cut and collapsed beside the boulder, gun clattering loose. Then came the quiet, not the soft kind but the kind that's been earned through smoke, blood, and fire. Eveline turned, chest heaven. Thaddeus limped down the ridge toward her, rifle still hot, mouth set. Well, he said, that went worse than I hoped but better than it could have. Bray's down, she said. Rest ran off. Thaddeus nodded. Except that one. He jerked his chin toward Rafe, who still hadn't moved. Eveline raised her shotgun, walked straight for him. He didn't flinch. You pull iron, I shoot, she said. So decide. Rafe let his rifle drop slow. Didn't come to shoot you, Eveline. Could have fooled me. Didn't know Bray meant to kill. Thought he'd burn a barn, scare you both off. When I saw the blast, figured it was too late to run or too early to die. She looked him over. Sweat streaked his neck. His eyes weren't cruel, just lost. You switched sides, she asked. Or just waited long enough to claim you did, Rafe swallowed. Maybe both. She lowered the shotgun but just a hair. "Go," she said. "Don't come back. Jonas, if he wants to see you, he'll send word. Till then, you ride." Rafe hesitated, then mounted slow and rode west, never looking back. She watched him disappear into the haze. Thaddeus exhaled sharp. "Braver than your daddy, you know that. He taught me where to stand," she said. "I just chose not to move." Back at the ranch, Jonas sat propped on the porch, sling over his shoulder, skin pale but breathing solid. When Eveline rode up, blood and dust smeared across her face, he stood best he could and met her halfway. She dismounted, boots hitting hard dirt. For a long moment neither spoke. Then she stepped into his arms, careful not to jostle his wound. His breath hitched against her hair. "You're back," he said. "We held. You were right," she whispered. "Your brother didn't come alone, but he didn't pull his trigger either. Then maybe there's something left in him after all." "Maybe," she said, "but I ain't waiting to find out." Thaddeus stayed 3 more days, helped patch the barn, sharpened their blades, buried the men who fell, even Bray, though he didn't deserve it. On the morning he left, he shook Jonas's good hand and tipped his hat to Eveline. "Debt paid," he said. "But if you ever need trouble again, I got nowhere else to be." Eveline smiled. "Trouble finds us just fine, Thaddeus." He grinned, mounted up, and rode east into the sun. By week's end, word reached town that Luther Bray was dead, his men scattered, his claims contested. The marshal never rode out. Papers shifted. But no one came knocking. Mercy Ridge learned to mind its own business. The schoolhouse reopened. Eveline stood at the front with a fresh dress and bruises she didn't bother hidden. The children noticed but didn't ask. When the last bell rang, she walked home slow, boots dusted, chin high. Jonas waited on the porch, a second chair beside him, 2 mugs of coffee, steam rising. She sat, took his hand. No words needed. The land stretched quiet before them, not silent but alive. Fence lines repaired. Crops common in. Sky clear for now. "You ever think this'd be your life?" he asked. "Married to a veil, protecting land with a shotgun." "I thought I'd die a teacher," she said. "Turns out I just needed a different kind of lesson." He chuckled, winced, then sipped slow. "You're the toughest woman I've ever met." "You say that like it's a compliment." "It is, and a warning." Evening settled in like an old dog at their feet. Far off, coyotes barked, but not close. "Not tonight." Eveline leaned back in her chair, one hand on the shotgun propped beside her, the other still holding his. The sky dimmed. The stars blinked awake, and the land finally felt like it was theirs. You've been riding with old Western stories. If the tale hit your mark, give it a like, drop a comment about your favorite part, and ring that bell so you don't miss the next trail we ride. Don't forget, hit that subscribe so you're always in the saddle, and you'll always be ready when the next story rides in.